Hello, it's Deborah from the attic, and today I want to give you some ideas of how we can cheer each other up in these grim times. And so this video is entitled Sending a Smile, and I want to give you some ideas for ways that you can do that. I will also talk about the way that ideas evolve, and specifically how this idea evolved. But I want to begin by getting down to the point of the video, which is sending a smile or a little happy note to somebody. These are some envelopes which I'm going to show you in a moment, but I want to begin with giving you some ideas of how to send a little smile to somebody. The idea came to me when my local community, which is a rural village community, were asking for volunteers to help with those that might be in need, with deliveries or maybe with doing shopping for them. And I thought, well, what can I do apart from that? Because singers, especially in Italy, have been singing and comedians have been comeding. And I thought, what do? I thought, well, I make. So I'll make stuff. And the idea is that I will make little tiny mini envelopes. And as long as I can operate within the restrictions that we have on our movement at the moment, I will be putting these through the letterboxes of my friends and neighbours. And where I'm further afield and I'm further away, I will be putting these in the post and sending them. Because there's nothing quite like something landing on your doormat to cheer you up. What I've done is I've created little cubes of 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches, and I've gone through my stamps, which was a lovely task, to find really cheerful little stamps. And the ones that I've used are these ones here. These are by My Favourite Things. They're little cute piggies. Who doesn't love a little cute piggy? And these are called Piggy Pebbles. And I've just stamped them out and I've cut them out, and I've added some little dashes around the outside to make it look like it has a border. I've taken some black card and I've stamped on that and embossed it with white embossing powder, and I'm just going to make these into little cards that I can then pop into an envelope. The other thing I can do, if you don't want to be colouring little characters, if you don't have stamps that you think are appropriate, the other thing you could do is cut down any artwork that you might have done. So I did some work with some watercolours recently, and I've cut down a little card, and again I could do that, and I could add a little sentiment on that. In fact, I quite like that one, so I'll do that as well. But I want you to see that there are lots of ways that you can use these tiny little frames to send some happy messages. I've got my 3 little frames, and I'm going to put I think maybe just one of them in one envelope. You could put several in an envelope, and I wanted to show you how you can make an envelope if you don't have an envelope maker. Of course, these sorts of things, these are great. That's a nice little envelope with all the proper tabs and everything lines up and it's all really pretty, and that's great. But if you're drawing those out individually, it can be a bit of a faff because you've got to get all of those angles right. You've got to make sure things overlap with the right amount left for you to glue the flaps together. And if you're just making 1 or 2 of these, you don't want to be going to all of that trouble. So I thought I would draw out and just explain how to make a really, really simple envelope. And it's more of a pouch. And if you think pouch rather than envelope, it might be a bit easier to get it into your brain, or at least that's what works for me. So take whatever it is that you want to make an envelope for. I'm deliberately not giving you sizes because it will depend on what size your stamps are and therefore what size of little card you're going to make. But take the final article that you want to put in an envelope and then draw a square around it with maybe 1/4 inch or about 1 centimetre around the outside, and then repeat it up here, and then at the top add 1 inch or so, because that will form the flap of your pouch. Now at that point you could just use that. You could fold this piece up to here, you could stick with glue, or you could sew down these side edges and you could turn over the flap and glue that down, and you have an envelope. But if you want to make it a little bit a little bit smarter maybe, you can add 2 extra lines down here. I've added these about 1 centimetre, maybe slightly over 1/4 of an inch to each side of my envelope. So I've drawn 2 lines down the edge of the top flap, and make sure it's the top flap that has the seal bit on it. And then rather than have them going straight across like that, because that will give you a difficult fold, just take away the corners like that. All you're doing is adding enough of a flap that you can fold it easily. I'm going to cut this out. There we go, that's my envelope all cut out. Now it may be you know perfectly well how to make an envelope, but I don't want to assume that you do, and I want to make something that's really nice and easy for you. This top flap I've deliberately left with square edges because it's easier for me to show you. So I'm going to fold this over, and then I'm going to add another couple of lines here. I'm going to chop off the corners. And that then will give me a nice little fold. I don't like to assume that people have got envelope making gizmos either. I've got one under my desk and I do use it quite a lot. But let's assume we've got a bit of paper and a ruler and a pencil and some scissors and just go from there. This is why you add the side flaps to the square that has the closure on the top. It makes everything neat. It means that when you fold everything up, you've got a very obvious back to your envelope. And the back is one where all the flaps meet, leaving the front completely clear so you can write on an address. This is quite small. If I was sending this through the mail, I would probably put this inside a larger envelope actually, and then just decorate this envelope in a pretty way. If you're making them slightly larger and you think they can go through the mail safely, that's fine. This is now big enough to take one of my little smile cards, and I can glue all of that in place, and I can write a name on the front and I can send it off. The way this idea evolved was from some sheets that I started originally making for myself because I wanted to add some extra phrases and sayings into the journal that I'd made a few weeks previously. And so I was looking for nice little quotes to do with leaves, and I wanted each one to be different, and I thought this is great because I could just drop them into my journal. And then I thought I was going to put them in this pouch here, and then I thought, oh, it might be nice to have a little envelope that they could just drop into. So I started playing around and I made some leaf-based envelopes because I thought, perfect, I can put those into my journal, I can tuck them into places and spaces because I've got lots of those, and that will be nice, and I can write on the reverse of my little cards. So I created my my phrases and I created my envelopes, and then I thought, oh, well, if I'm going to do phrases and quotes, I could make some little miniature cards. So I could make these as a base and then stick a phrase on one half of this, fold this in half, and then it's a card. And then I went back to my envelopes and I thought I'd like a little seal, and I created 2 little round circles to seal them with. These are deliberately quite large because I have a 1 1/8 of an inch stamp or punch, and I thought, well, that way I can make sure that I get a little seal. So again, this was all still for my own purposes, and that's what I was doing, and I just wanted to bulk out my journal. And then the coronavirus hit, and I thought I would take the idea of my leaf quotes and I would make cheerful quotes. And I thought, I don't really want doom and gloom quotes about, oh, keep your chin up and the darkest hour is only 60 minutes. I wanted something that might give me a giggle. So I went to some people that I like who do good quotes, like Dolly Parton, she always does great quotes, Billy Connolly, Douglas Adams, Dalai Lama. And so there's a mixture of funny, humorous, wise, maybe a little bit thought-provoking, but nothing heavy. because these were all being designed in my head for my purposes, so that I could pop them through my neighbours' letterboxes, or I could send them to friends, or people who are further afield, and I could send something to them. So then I designed some envelopes to go with my phrases and sayings, and again I designed some little pages that could be used as cards. And that's where the whole thing came from. And then I thought maybe other people would want to do some cheerful quotes as well, and that's when I decided I would turn it into something that that I could share with you in my Etsy shop. And then because I was doing that, I thought, well, maybe people might like to bulk out their journals as well. So that's where the whole thing came from. Now onto the fun bit. I've cut out each of my little card bases and I folded them, so I've stuck a little happy sentiment onto the front of one of those, and likewise that one. If you wanted, you could add a little mat to the back of these, maybe some kind of a frame, perhaps with some dark brown card, if you really wanted to make your sentiment stand out. Then I've got some that I'll just put into envelopes. I can write little messages on the reverse of those. I've cut out and assembled some envelopes. I'm going to take 2 of my quote cards and just drop them in the envelope. And then this is how you would use the large circles. If you have a hole punch, just punch them out. Otherwise, they're large enough for you to cut around without finding it too fiddly, I hope. And I'm going to complete my card by gluing my round seal onto there. If you have sealing wax, you could drop some sealing wax in there and put an impression into it. I think that's quite a nice way to seal an envelope. And like I say, this could either go through somebody's letterbox or put it into a larger envelope and put it into the mail. And also these are big enough to take the little miniature cards. And I can seal them in the same way. But the original idea to send little envelopes and send little happy mail to people is this. And so you don't need this if it's not what you want. Find some cheerful stamps, play with them, have some fun colouring them in, find a piece of artwork, add a nice little phrase or saying, and then make yourself a little envelope. Doesn't matter how you do it. In these times, I think the important thing is just to do it and reach out to people and say hi, thinking about you, and that's just a nice thing to do. I hope that gave you some ideas and some inspiration for ways that we can send a little smile through the post and maybe cheer each other up in these dark times. And until we meet again, take really good care of yourselves.